Well, speaking of Gypsy, that was 25 years ago. The Tonys are this Sunday, and you're nominated. What does that mean to you or for you, if anything? Hello, and good evening. Now, I know some of you might be asking yourselves, what the heck is Perez Hilton doing here? Why is Perez Hilton moderating this panel? Well, I too am asking myself that question. No, but the answer is I'm a big fan of theater, live events. I'm a big fan of the things they do here at the Y. I came to a show here a few months ago. I loved it. And I really just wanted to meet Tyne Daly and Terrence McNally. Plus, I saw the show and I really enjoyed it, and I thought, well, let me try and come up with some questions that maybe other folks haven't asked. Nothing too inappropriate, maybe just a little inappropriate, and just have fun. So I'll start off with Terrence. These are characters that you've written about in the past. What drew you to them again and to revisit them now?
Well, I've written about 1.5 of them in the past. 25 years ago, I wrote a play called Andre's Mother, in which the part Tyne plays did not have a word, and the part Fred Weller plays had all the words. And I wanted to see what that woman, maybe it took me 25 years to figure out what that woman wanted to say. And so it's, and the part Bobby plays, Will, wasn't even born when I wrote the first version of this play. So it's old character, it's more old themes, you know. Because I didn't know who Catherine was when I wrote the first version, because she didn't speak. And if you don't have dialogue in a theater, it's pretty hard to establish character. She just stood there and took it. Now she gives as good as she gets. So, and so much has happened to me, to this country, in the 25 years since the height of the AIDS struggle. I wanted to write about the change, the enormous change, the fact that this play has 2 married men who are good fathers to a young boy, and I wanted to write about that change, and it's a very fascinating time we live in right now.
It is.
So it's a brand new play, but I guess its seeds were planted 25, 30 years ago.
Well, and I think it's really relevant, too, because just last week I was reading a study that in New York City, violence against LGBT people in 2013 was up 23%. That percentage shocked me. So seeing a big old gay play on Broadway is awesome, because visibility is key for hopefully, you know, trying to make issues like that less bad. Tyne, your character in the play is hard, I would say, or rough around the edge. She's a strong woman whom some might not find so lovable, but you make her seem very lovable, and I ended up rooting for you, even though on paper it may not have come across that way. How did you approach her, and how did you make her seem so likable?
Well, I don't know whether likable is or strong applies either, or any of those things. I think she's stuck. I think she's stuck in her upbringing, and she's stuck in her ignorance and her prejudices, and she's kind of in amber. I think that when Terrence and I talked about the possibility of making a play with these characters, I was really interested to hear from her, because the theater is about words, and there's no better person than this man right here, who plays with the language in a way that's fabulous and beautiful and musical. And we'd had a good experience with Masterclass. So to hear from Catherine is to hear from she's a whole person. She's not just a political stance or a set of ideas. She's really a person. She's a complicated person, and that's delicious to play. I think she tried to love her son as much as he tried to love her, and that they missed each other, and I think that that's tragic. And a lot of that happened because of the atmosphere in which they grew up. they were influenced by their society and Gesundheit and. I wish I could see you guys. Yeah, that's because doesn't feel like a talk now.
House lights a little bit.
That'd be lovely if you could. But yeah, she's not a stance and she's not a piece of cardboard. She's a whole round lady, and so there are a lot of things about her, and you'll just have to come and see.
Well, I'd imagine a lot of people here saw it, right? So we'll get to questions at the around 45-minute mark.
You know, I wrote the part for, hoping Tyne would want to do it, because after Masterclass, I so enjoyed our collaboration on a play that I'd written for another great actress, Zoe Caldwell, and I thought, gee, I'd like to write a play for this new muse, great actress in my life. Tyne doesn't mean she's going to do it, but when she read it. And I wrote the part that Bobby plays for him because he'd been in the revival of Ragtime and was nominated for a Tony for his performance of younger brother. And
Wow, that's flattering.
and I knew if I wanted to put a song in, he could sing.
There is no song, though.
And he's a good example of the next generation of gay men. And I thought if I got my foot wrong, writing someone who's in his late 20s, early 30s, he would say, we don't say it, or we don't feel that way, or...
You encourage that in the process?
Yes, I do. It's called collaboration, the first draft.
Wow.
In subsequent productions. No, and then Sheryl's a wonderful young director whose work I've been observing. And I thought, gee, I haven't worked with a woman director in a long, long time. And it'd be very interesting what a woman would bring to this, and a mother. Sheryl's also a mother of 2 daughters, and I think it was a very good choice we made. And we're the right 4 people to have done this play. And our little boy we lucked out with.
He's
and
adorable. Oh.
Yes, and Cheryl's patience with him. I could not have done.
Now, Bobby, in the play you play the father to a... How old is the boy in the play supposed to be?
He's 6.
6. In real life, you don't have a 6-year-old, so how did you approach that? Did you do any research hanging out with 6-year-olds?
Yeah, my best friend has 2 little ones, and I've spent a lot of time with them. They live in Portland, and I've spent a lot of suburban time schlepping them around, which was helpful. But I really just wanted to focus on how physical I was with the little boy. I wanted it to be very clear that our language of love was physical before anything else. And I just told little Grayson that we were going to be rolling around a lot together. I'd be picking him up, and and that's where we started. And he trusted me, and we've developed this great kind of physical bond. And that's where the parenting for me started, from a physical relationship.
And Terrence brought up Ragtime, and you were on Broadway last in Big Fish. How is doing a play different?
It is I could have tuberculosis and do the play. It's the most amazing thing, But, being in a Broadway musical is very stressful. You have to keep your voice very, very healthy. And if you get a little cold, you're kind of screwed. So it has been such an amazing pleasure to be in a play and just really concentrate on communication through just words. And I'm doing it with the best, so it's great.
Are you able to have more fun? I know if you're in a musical, they never go out. Are you going out after the show?
I'm going out a lot. We're having a great time. Yeah.
Sheryl, the play first was premiered in Pennsylvania. How different was it then from the show we saw here in New York?
Well, when we did it in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, Terrence and Tyne spoke about doing it. Tyne was with the play before I was, and I would say only about 6 weeks before we did it in Bucks, I was brought on board, and we rehearsed for 2 weeks, and we had 1 day of tech, and we went in front of an audience, and Bobby and Tyne and the rest of the company did 12 performances in 10 days, I think it was, and then we were done, and that was it. And I think Terrence would say that it was a great way to do it, and I would agree with him. And so where the play is mostly different from what we learned at Bucks was just mostly about Cal, I would say, mostly about Fred Weller's character. We really learned a lot about, and Terrence is a master playwright and a master rewriter and he sculpts the language in a way. Sometimes when you just lose a couple of words from a sentence, or when he would reconfigure the order of the lines. And then when we rehearsed it for the Golden for this time around, we had 3 weeks to rehearse, we had a week of tech, we had 3 weeks of previews, so we were really able to build and to mold and to experience the play together. The Bucks, I would say that they would agree with me, it was like being shot out of a cannon and just going. So there were a lot of changes with that. I think that we learned how powerful it was. The play was talking about 4 generations of people and how each generation experiences family life and experiences what is family and what is having children, and Bobby's character and the little boy, Grayson, we found ourselves talking in rehearsal and Tyne and Terrence and I would say to Bobby, this is what happened during the AIDS crisis. It was, so we learned a lot about that through rehearsal and really learned how strong the generational difference is. And as Tyne said, her character got stuck while these 2 men moved forward. And it was a rewriting, but it was also really being able to delve into it and to really flesh it out.
I think my memory, which is pretty amazing in the theater, was that the general understanding after we'd played for our little 2 weeks was that they wanted more play rather than less play. Usually plays are overwritten, so we added, 15 minutes? Or, yeah, there's more of the play on Broadway than there was at Bucks County, and none of it's padding, none of it's fat. It's still there's nothing in this play that can be thrown away. Not one single line that doesn't inform or sneak into your subconscious. It's all there on purpose.
Well, Sheryl said we were shot out of a cannon, and Tyne said we didn't have time to overthink our interpretation of the roles. And I think more plays should be shot out of the canon. I think what's happened as theater costs have soared, producers, I understand, are more cautious, so they think the more readings, workshops, opinions they get before they commit to raising the curtain for a paying audience, the better. And the play of mine before this one, by the time we got to opening night, it was like, what was I sitting down to write 3 years ago when I began this script? Because we'd workshopped it, developed it. I think you only learn about a play doing it in front of an audience. You can sit in a rehearsal room and discuss it till you're blue in the face. And actors can overthink their performance, and I think it was good for them. I mean, we had a prompter sitting in the first row opening night in Bucks County. And
Did you need him?
Yes.
Yes.
You did? I love it. It's theater.
Yeah,
It's live.
but the audience gets that. But the play had this play is pure, what we wanted to do. It's better than it was in Bucks County, but we didn't try to fix,
And
try to improve it.
what was the response from the community there? Because it's not New York City. Was it the same as it is here? Different?
Yeah, no, it was really, the response has been universally overwhelmingly overwhelming. And particularly since the process in Bucks was so quick, it's not that it was surprising, but all of a sudden we were sitting in the theater before we knew it, and before, as Terrence said, before we had time to think about it, and people were laughing, and people were crying, and people were standing, and people were cheering, and it was, so we definitely knew, we trusted that we had something, and then it was reconfirmed every night, and it's been, I'm not at the theater every night, Terrence and I are not at the theater every night, and it's safe to say that that's the way audiences have been reacting to it.
Oh yeah,
every night.
And this is a story I've told a lot in the last couple of months. But I went to the theater with a very good friend of mine, Jonathan Hadari, who played Herbie to my Gypsy a quarter of a century ago. But he's a wonderful actor, and he knows a lot about his business and a lot about this work. And we were very disappointed in what we'd seen after the first act. It was just not. There wasn't much going on. There wasn't much truth being told, there wasn't much that was funny. And I said to him, God, Jonathan, I think maybe audiences don't want to think anymore in the theater. And he said, no, I think it's worse than that. I think audiences don't want to feel anymore. And that gave me the willies. But coming to work with this man and for this man, he wants people to think and feel and laugh and have an emotional experience, get involved, care about the folks, not just sit back and admire something that's very, very shiny, or have opinions, get to fold their arms and have opinions about what everybody's doing. He wants to grab people by the vitals, and that's what we've been doing. And that feels like the kind of theater that I signed on for 50 years ago.
Well, speaking of Gypsy, that was 25 years ago. The Tonys are this Sunday, and you're nominated. What does that mean to you or for you, if anything?
Well, I was nominated for Rabbit Hole, too. The nominations make me feel very proud because it feels like sort of quality control. So I've had, I've had a few more experiences than those three, but in those three I've been recognized by my peers, and that feels wonderful. The prizes thing it gets more difficult after that. Can be very divisive, can be very separating in companies, and that doesn't feel great. But the nomination feels.
So will you prepare a speech just in case?
Nope.
No? So if you win on Sunday, you're going to be winging it.
Yes.
All right, you heard that here. I'm gonna be analyzing your acceptance speech if you win. Was this really off the cuff? You won't prepare anything? Like not even some key points?
She has 8 shows to do this week.
Oh yeah, you're busy. I love it. Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm excited to see.
I did when I do other people's words for a living. So when I go as myself, I tend to sort of go as myself. I don't like to have a scripted thing when I'm being a person. Does that make
And
any
this
sense?
is
Yeah, no,
And-
I don't. That's why, talk shows are very strange.
Yeah, they're
usually
scripted.
because they want you to have a conversation beforehand and kind of decide what you're going to. I've never been able to do that. Most of the comic people get very mad about that because they want you to plant a thing so that they can do their joke back. All of them, talking about Cosby,
Yeah, yeah.
and Jay Leno, and Johnny Carson, and all of them wanted to have this pre-interview. The only one who was ever easy to talk to was Joan Rivers, because we just gabbed, which was medium entertaining, I hope.
This is just a complete aside. Your category is really weird on Sunday because Audra McDonald is nominated against you. And I saw that show, and that's a straight-up musical. There is no play to that. It's a musical, so it's bizarre. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Well, it's a revival of a musical, too. It was done by, who's that lovely actress? I can't think of her name right now. About 10 years ago. I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you. I don't get to see the other work because I'm working 8 times a week.
Terrence, something that's featured in this show is a lot of references to and talking about opera, and that's something that's been in other shows of yours. What draws you to that? You're just a huge fan, or is there something more to it?
No, my plays are very emotional. Opera is very emotional. I don't like people who hide their feelings, and I'm not. I've lived through. I think it's starting to wind down the age of postmodern irony, and I felt very left out. I'm not ironic or postmodern. I think life is very intense experience, and my writing tries to reflect that. So, in opera, Mimi tells you what she's going through, and at great length sometimes. And I write arias, and maybe opera is why I became a playwright. I don't know. When I was in the 6th grade in Catholic school, our sister, Mary Magdalene, brought in a phonograph and put on some Madame Butterfly, and I was hooked. And
Do you go? What was the last opera you saw?
I sort of don't go to the Met too much now because I hope they're not here, but the ticket prices are really high. And
Well,
high def.
They're trying to do things
high
to make
def
it
is,
more accessible.
Yeah, they've done things. They do
Outdoors and things like that.
Unsold seats they sell at 6 o'clock, just as we're selling. People under 30 can see our show for $30. Something all the arts have to attract a younger audience, and one way is give them a break at the pocketbook. But opera, I just, someone says, how do you get to love opera? And I said, I don't know. I don't like calf's liver, and I'm all right. I just don't like calf's liver. It doesn't make me a bad person, and you don't have to like opera. It's just something I like. It doesn't make me a better person. People are intimidated by classical music still, I'm afraid, and like it's some mysterious thing. And, you know, I've listened to Pelléas and Melisande so many times, and I just don't get it. You know, and so it's not an opera I'm ever going to love, but I know it's a masterpiece. So, but
Sure.
opera's got me in the theater, maybe.
I love that. Sheryl, you've actually worked on a previous play that's also had gay themes. You're obviously not a gay man. What's drawn you to work on these plays? And has it been a challenge for you?
No, not at all. I don't even think of the plays that I've worked on with gay themes, and I particularly don't consider Mothers and Sons a gay-themed play. First and foremost, what attracted me to it was the opportunity to work with Terrence, who I have always admired and always wanted to direct one of his plays. So this is a big pinch me experience for me. And then with Tyne and Bobby and Fred and Grayson too, I'd never worked with a child before. To me, this play is about family. The play is about what happens when I think the AIDS crisis, when you're a mother in Texas and you hear that your kid has a cough and a couple of months later your kid is dead and you don't have time to catch up with that. I think parents have complicated relationships with their children, and then when that gets in the way, I think that to call it gay themed is untrue to me, because I think that now in 2014, and it's I didn't even know that statistic about LGBT hate crimes, but I do know that I have a lot of gay friends who have children, and it just felt like an important family to put on stage. It felt like if we could get it on Broadway, and Bobby's character and Cal are the first legally married gay couple on Broadway, and it felt like we could maybe bridge a lot of the gap between the George Washington and the Golden Gate Bridge with tourists and people who come in and see it. But I never really ever, I don't approach it as a gay themed play. When we worked on Cal and Will as a couple, it was always, they were a couple, they had a kid. I think there are straight people having children the same way that Cal and Will have children now too, and yes, I think it is definitely has to be more thought out, and it definitely requires money for two men to have a child as well, particularly a biological child, and those are all the things that Terrence speaks about and speaks to in the play. But to me, it's about family, and to me, it's about generations, and to me, very much, because I'm a mother, because of my girls, it was really about the exploration about what happens to this poor woman. And I don't say pity poor, but I just mean, in my opinion, there's nothing worse in life than losing a child, and I don't care what the circumstances are. So to me, that's what drew me to the play.
And Bobby, for you, what was the most challenging part of preparing for the role?
I've said this before. It's one might assume that the character is very closely bonded to me because I'm about the same age as the character, and I'm gay, and I live in New York. But we're very different in a very essential way, and it's that I grew up in the generation where AIDS is deeply embedded in my psychology. I saw it on the news. I was terrified of it growing up alone, not being able to talk about it. And so a lot of the ways in which my character is completely free in himself, due to probably who his family was, where he grew up, are ways in which I have had to fight very hard to be free. And I'm only just getting there now at 33 years old. You're 33. I know, I'm 33. And so challenge might not be the right word, but the character certainly really inspires me to keep opening myself up to love and to risk and to possibility, because it's what he has done, and it's why he has such a loving and wonderful relationship and child.
It's nice to see a functional couple on stage, too. aspirational. Tyne, what's been the most rewarding part of doing this show for you?
Just the words itself, the story. I love telling stories. I'm a storyteller by trade, and I think the story is wonderfully open-hearted. You know, that it's inclusive, that it's compassionate. All those words. I think it means to be about love and loss, and grief, and all those really big operatic feelings. You know, this one said to me once, he doesn't write realistic dialogue. He writes for actors who know how to work with size. There's nothing puny about the play, either in its interior or in its presentation. It's meant to be challenging in the fact that these people are having big, deep feelings. So that's, you know, it's not subtle.
And actors in the theater get to play bigger emotions than I think they're often asked to in film, or camera maybe is not as friendly to that. But
You modify certainly for film. It comes down to get you. In the theater, you send it out.
I think actors enjoy playing me most, who enjoy being actors, enjoy being on stage.
There are actors on stage who don't enjoy it?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I'm unbearing my soul, and that fourth wall to them is made of brick. And if they thought anyone was out there watching, they would be very upset. Oh, yeah, I've worked with some. I'm not going to name names, but I think Tyne likes to go out there and strut her stuff.
And she does it very well. And Bobby, what's been the most rewarding thing for you?
Well, it's been personally rewarding for what I just spoke about. But you know, I don't want to embarrass you, but getting to work with Tyne is one of the biggest gifts of my entire career. It's like you have people you act with, and you have scene partners, and it's a very big distinction, actually. And I go out there and I trust you so deeply, and I know that, and we're just a real team. And whatever happens, I feel safe, even though the character doesn't feel very safe. Bobby feels safe, and it's just the biggest pleasure ever.
I sense, as a playwright, I sense their delight in one another. And Fred Weller, who's not with us tonight, says how much he's learned from working this woman. You are a little older than both of your co-stars.
I'm older than everybody,
a little more
darling.
experienced.
And I always have been. I was born old.
You are learning. They are learning from you. And how lucky they are. One of the critics says Tyne Daly isn't in masterclass. She's giving a masterclass. And I think
But that sounds very...
I think Fred and Bobby realize that. And Grayson will when he gets older. He's too young to appreciate Tyne at that point.
What's that like, working with somebody so young who's in the play a good amount?
I always call him Mr. Taylor. And we meet before at half hour, and we wish each other a good show. And that's part of the whole formality of being on the stage and the tradition of the theater, I really love a lot. I came up in it, and I really still love it. You know, he pays a lot of attention. We got very lucky in this kid because he's not too much of a professional child. He's like a child, but he's an attentive child, and he can ride a laugh better than almost anybody I've ever worked with. He really listens. If it comes there, he waits, and if it's not coming, he jumps in. He's an extraordinary little boy, and he's not going to be a little boy for much longer. So he's got to take this experience right this minute. But I really do like him a great deal.
Did you have to search for a lot of kids and audition tons?
Her job.
Yes. I probably saw over 200 little boys. Wow. Yeah.
For a 2-week gig.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. He's an extraordinary little boy, though. He as Tyne said, he's very attentive. He writes films. He writes
6?
novels.
Opening up, guess it was his novel. He gave us all his
Yeah,
novel.
he gave us all his novels.
Does he sing
Several
too?
hundred pages, by the way. It's
I
not
don't
like
know if he sings.
thing.
I've never asked him to sing. The other night, James Earl Jones came to see the play, and he was all excited because he had this little machine that plays Darth Vader's voice. and he played it for Mr. Jones, and and Bobby and I were standing outside the room, and he was just, he like, because he's a very mature young man as well, and also Bobby has established this beautiful relationship with him, so I think that he does feel very well taken care of up on that stage by all of you, and he's an extraordinary kid.
Now, in a musical, I'd imagine there are things that could probably go wrong regularly. In a play, have there been any mess-ups of note or anything gone wrong, or anybody forgetting their lines in a big way? Any funny anecdote? I don't know. That's what I was getting at.
Right. No, I've gone up a couple of times, and there's sometimes noise from mechanical stuff, and there's sometimes noise from the audience. Cell phones.
You haven't ever broken character and told people to like stop taking a photo? Had a Patti
No,
LuPone
because-
moment?
Because I can hear it, but Catherine can't. It's as simple as that. I know what's going on, but Catherine does not. She's in a room. That's the fourth wall. It's a real thing. I've been building it for 50 years or so. The first time I had to officially break the fourth wall was doing Master Class, because Master Class has got a lot of direct address in it. And what I did in order to figure that out was that I did some cabaret work to just be talking directly to the audience rather than
Can be
behind
very
them.
hard for an actor
Yeah, it's
who's never done it.
It's a very different deal. But
Zoe Caldwell said, I've been in every kind of play, but I've never acknowledged the audience being there, and you don't know how hard this is for me for the first couple of previews
yeah,
in Philadelphia. It was really, she said, I spent my life pretending they're not there.
Yeah.
Now I come out and say, you with the bow tie in the first row. It's very hard.
These characters, now that you wrote, 1.5 times after about the characters, you envision writing about them again in the future? Or are these stories
I
told?
never know what I'm going to do next, but I think I've had my say with this, but who knows,
Are you working on something next?
couple of things, yeah.
Anything you could tell us?
Yeah, but I mean, we should talk about it.
Well, gorgeous. I think, are we ready to take some of the audience questions yet, or are we still working on that?
Read them, or do they?
We'll figure that out. I think they'll give them microphones and they'll read their own questions.
by the way, since you think this is not what you normally do, you're doing very well.
Oh, thanks.
Very well.
I think I'm sweating a lot.
Oh my.
Here we go. Oh, we're getting some more. All right. Well, I guess I'm reading your questions, but I think people should get a moment to shine. So if I read your question, you could raise your hand. So this question is for Tyne and Bobby. What adjustments do you need to make between acting in a musical versus acting in a straight play? Who asked that one? Or maybe more than one person did. Or if you feel ashamed of your question, you don't have to raise your hand. But that's the question.
You just have to find truth in a different shape. That's how I see it. In a musical, you're often finding truth in a bigger arena, and your behavior might be a little fuller because you have to fill the size of the music or fill the size of the theater. But it's always about finding truth, and that's really the only goal an actor should ever have, I think.
That's right. No difference. No difference. You're still trying to figure out what the story is. The singing, I always thought I fell in love with the musical theater when I was very young. I thought it was all going to be about musical theater. I didn't know that it was going to be about film, and I didn't know, or television, and I didn't know that I was going to be mistaken as a tragedian. That all just happened to me. But I haven't gotten to do it very much. And in theory, the old-fashioned musicals, when you couldn't say any longer what you felt, you burst into song. But yeah, it's about telling the truth. And the rest of it is pretty technical.
Some of that first acting work did you do, was it in musicals or straight plays, or did you just go straight to film and TV?
I did stuff in, what do you call it, community stuff, little summer stock. Yeah, I did a season of musical stock. We did She Loves Me. Funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. A couple of 3 things. But then, chance is a big deal in any actor's career. So it took me away for a very long time. And then when I, had a chance to come back and do the musical, the big musical, I'd made a terrible mistake and started with the best one. It's been very difficult to find something as fun as that.
This
Except for Ragtime, which was fun. That was fun. That we did in concert. Yeah, it's a pretty good musical.
This question goes to all of you. What do you hope people take away from the play?
What does that mean, take away? Who's the questioner? Take away from the play. I hope they bring something to the play. I hope they bring their thoughts and feelings, and they add to what they've seen in terms of their experience. I want them talking about it on the way home. I want them, yeah. But it's not I don't mean to pick words, but it's as if you're going to, pay your money and then get a loaf of bread. If it is a loaf of bread, then I hope it's really good bread and crunchy and has a lot of wonderful nourishment in it. That it's not just air and sliced up nothing. I want them to bring something though, and they always do. They bring to us. The other character, the fifth character they talk about all the time. To feel people breathing and to feel people stop breathing, and to feel people and to hear people laughing and to hear people weeping, is an exchange of human experience that can't happen in the movies, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's what they give us. I think we receive as much as we give in the theater, and there are nights the silence in the theater is so miraculous, or people crying, and it's very beautiful. And we're all laugh whores too. We like our moments, the big laughs, and we want it all. But I like it. I've noticed when I stand in the back, when people are leaving, they are talking about the play, and that's what I'm glad they're taking the play home with them, as opposed to where we're going to eat next, where's the car parked. That's a little depressing, 53rd now, 51st. No. So that makes me feel good.
I think the continued conversation, yeah. The give and take, of course. I think this, just the, because Terrence doesn't tie it up in a bow at the end of the play. We don't know where Catherine is going, literally or figuratively, I think. And I think people, what I found so extraordinary is when you listen to the audience leave, or yesterday I had an experience of people seeing it for the first time, strangers, and all they wanted to do was talk to me about this play. And I find what's been so gratifying about this play is that people bring their own experience to it in talking about it.
Right,
Yeah.
You're my mother.
Yes.
I hear a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't know how that speaks to mothers. But obviously it's a personal response.
That's a comment I get a lot is, how could you possibly have known my mother? She never left Nebraska in her life. And you know her so well. And so obviously, it's a very complicated relationship, mothers and sons. Mothers and daughters is a whole other series.
Except
place to write.
I've also had people coming and saying, though, I don't have a son, I have a daughter, but this I feel the same about her second husband. I mean, you could translate this into another situation and have it's because I think it's a big play. It's not a puny play that you've tapped into some sort of universal mother.
Bobby's the only one of us who's had his parents see the play, so.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't you? Yeah, we're all orphans. They were responded very well to it, didn't
Oh
they?
my God, yes. I mean, thankfully we have a great relationship, and they're very supportive. So, yeah, I think they were grateful as to our closeness through the play.
This is another question. This is a question for all of you. What's the relevance of this play to the millennial generation? I didn't come up with that one.
Here's a big one. So many young people have no idea what happened during the height of the AIDS crisis, and so many people are so cavalier about their sexuality and about the freedoms and the opportunities that they now enjoy. I think it's very, very important for the younger generation to realize that AIDS and what happened as a result of AIDS is a huge reason why we have the opportunities we have. I mean, the political formation around a community as a result of AIDS is so directly connected to the gay marriage movement. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that, to be grateful for that, and to learn from it.
This question is for Tyne. What dream role have you not yet played?
Well, I'm interested in The Mad Woman of Shire. Although I don't even know if it's a good play anymore. I liked it. Zoe Caldwell is an amazing theater artist, and she wrote a little book called I Will Be Cleopatra. It's a little book. But she talks about there being certain roles that you've done, and you think, okay, I did it. I've done that. And then there are ones that sort of haunt you. I did a very bad Mother Courage, and it might be fun to try Courage again. But I don't really know, because I'm not good at assigning myself work. I keep waiting for somebody to imagine something for me.
Like happened with this show.
Yeah.
It'll happen again.
A part you want to play?
I don't. I feel the same way. Yeah.
Somebody asked me.
Another question for you. How do you think Catherine's life changes after the play ends?
This one we get a lot, because people want to know what happens next, which is great, which is a great thing to do with a play, when everybody goes away imagining what happens to all of them. It changes, it morphs. I do sometimes feel that Catherine has come before she's going to throw herself out the window that she's literally suicidal, but that's not true every night. I think she may have changed her mind about that. I don't even know if she's staying for dinner. This is only I sometimes think Catherine has a gun in her purse, and she's come to actually do some harm. These are
Literally?
all literally. These are all
Really?
games that I play with,
Wow.
with my own head inside of the framework of the story to energize a whole lot of possibilities.
I'm going to look at that purse.
Yeah.
Very different.
She's from Texas, honey. She's armed.
Well, I would imagine.
Armed.
The actors can make up whatever they want,
No,
as long as they say what I wrote.
this is
I don't care what's in that purse.
this is work outside of what we've been supplied with by Mr. McNally, which is a way to keep it psychologically interesting.
And
Yeah.
for me, the play was about a woman who take her coat off. She finally takes it off. Then she puts it back on. And that's really was the plotting of this play for me.
But in the way
And that sounds like I'm kidding, but I'm not, because I learned very early on in my second play that was directed by Elaine May, the playwright has to know what his characters are doing, not what they're saying. If you know what they're doing, what they're saying comes so easily. It's when they're not doing anything, you get stuck and write really boring dialogue. And so as long as I kept that play, but you don't know this, did you? No. The play is totally about the coat.
No, I didn't know. I know. No, I do. I know
I
it's
knew
about
that.
the code, because the code to me is some kind of armor. She has her armor on. She takes it off, but in the way that we play it, not to be a spoiler, she can't quite get it back on again.
Yeah. I didn't know about the gun in her purse, but I did know about the coat.
We're all learning.
What happens next? I don't know. That's for other people to dream about and to think about.
We all talk about our ideas.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, I think different people bring different hopes to what happens next. Also depending, I think what Terrence has written and what this company does so brilliantly, other than the coat, is that it's such a specific story to this group of people, and yet the universality of what happens next speaks to everybody. And we've heard so many different, and we just nod our heads, yes, sure, that's good.
And Bud decides to be a professional wrestler.
Yes.
Do you think they adopt or have another child?
I don't.
You don't. I do.
I do too. I thought so too, yeah. We spoke
My
about
life.
that.
That doesn't mean you're wrong. Now, the play's been running for a while now. Do you change how you do it from show to show?
I can answer that. They have gotten better every performance. We do not give back. They don't give back. I stand in the back, but they have gotten better with each performance. It's phenomenal. It's like an acting school going on there. It's amazing. I'm used to plays that are up. Oh, why'd you come Tuesday night? You know, I saw something the other night. Why'd you come tonight? You're the worst audience, and you get abused by this actor. You try to say I had a good time, and you're the worst audience. God, ugh.
After the show, they said this.
We don't do that because we give good shows. They're wonderful. They give great shows, and I think Sheryl has created a mood, a room, an atmosphere for these adult men and the child to play with this great actress. And it's kind of a gift to me, the playwright, to see a play flower. I thought it was great opening night. I think it's 100% better last Sunday matinee, yesterday's matinee. And I owe that to them. I have nothing to do with that. That's Sheryl and the actor's own chemistry between them.
But it's not about changing any words or changing any moves, really, or changing anything. With the you know, they call it art because they have to put it in a frame. It's got a frame around it, whether it's a painting or a book, you know, or the theater. So we have our framework, which has been built very carefully, very simply, very carefully. Inside of that frame, we have a lot of freedom.
Terrence, have you written for actors specifically before?
All my life I've been doing it.
Really? Meaning like for specific actors?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
my first play was written for Ethel Merman and Laurence Olivier. Neither of them did it. It would have been so good. But
Who ended up doing it instead?
no, because it helps you to hear a voice.
Oh, wow.
You know, writing is very lonely, but I said, well, Tyne will say the line like this. I think. Bobby will do this. So I love setting. You know, Balanchine set all of his great ballets on specific dancers. Shakespeare wrote for a company of actors. Molière, Chekhov, all the great playwrights were members of a company, and they wrote for them. And you learn who the actor is, all the things available to them. And I think it's thrilling to write for people. If the play's good, other people can play. If you've written a play that only Zoe Caldwell could make masterclass work, then something's very wrong with the play. Unfortunately, it's been done by a lot of other people, but I love writing for specific people. But it's horrible when they turn it down, and that's happened too. You know,
Not a lot.
You're going to love this play, and then they say, you know, it's really not for me. And then you're like, it's sort of like a bad blind date.
You won't write for that person again then.
No, no. Once turned down, I get pretty cranky.
Do we have any other audience questions? Or I guess spontaneous ones, sure. Am I allowed to? Why not? Fuck it.
I can see you. Well, I'll start. To me, I think it's a testament to the fact that in many ways, Catherine is an honest person. She has not read it because maybe she didn't dare to, but she also purposefully did not invade her son's privacy, even though it's been a source of pain for her to have him shut her out. He thinks he thought maybe she shut him out. She thinks he shut her out. That's there. I think I said this before. Therein lies the tragedy of these two people who were born to each other, missing each other. But I think that it's almost a point of honor for Catherine not to have read that, and that's what I try to put in the single line that addresses that particular thing, which is replied to by Fred's character, by Cal. And now I guess you take over.
No, I think it's the way it's written is how I feel about journals. Why did he leave the journal out? Could have destroyed it, and understand neither of them wanting to read it. And when he begins to read it, it's about the man he loved having a very restless eye, you know. And Maybe.
Secrets. There's a lot of
Secrets. We
in the
do.
play.
We really want to know one another's secrets. If my mother had left a journal, I don't think I would have read it, but I can't imagine burning it either.
Yeah.
I have a journal of a partner who died from AIDS, and I've never read it, and I don't think I ever will. But I can't throw it out.
Yeah. But I think there's privacy and secrecy, and I think there's a difference.
Yes.
Exactly. But you know,
Oh, secrecy.
secrets are different from.
He's not your father. No, that's a secret. That's called. Then that has to go in the play.
Oprah journals
see
every
something.
day. I have old journals. It's just got a lot of bad poetry and really awful doodling. Back when I was writing a lot of trains in Europe, I thought that's what you do. You write in journals in Europe.
I've got a good yard of journals, and every time I open this drawer, I think, why am I keeping this? If anyone reads it, I would be mortified, especially my husband. But I can't throw them out either. So part of our ego, that would be the final annihilation. I mean, this play is also about how we can vanish off the face of the earth. When he says to her, we're the only two people in the world these pictures mean anything to. When that journal goes, that's the only tangible, that's her son's handwriting. It's Cal's love of his life, or was the love of his life then, handwriting. And you burn that, he's gone. This partner of mine who died, his voice was on the answering machine, and a house guest, who I said you could use the apartment for a week, they took it upon themselves to change our message, and I just thought I was shocked, but there was a part of me saying, Gary's been dead for 6 months. It's kind of creepy maybe. Say, hi, you've reached 677, the phone number. And so someone did what I should have done for me, but it felt that was almost the last trace of him being erased. And it's very hard to know how when it happens, loss, what you want to cling to suddenly. And an answering machine voice can become very important. But it shouldn't have stayed for, and, would I have ever erased it? I didn't have the chance to make the decision. But I sure was upset when it had been done.
I see somebody raising their hand there.
We'll repeat it.
Yeah. Well, you're speaking about a moment at the end of the play, and you describe it as an epiphany, which is a big word. I think there's a tiny little opening for her, but that maybe it's enough. If the play is about the coat, the play is also about the cookie. And there's something very simple and very comforting about a cookie and a glass of cold milk. And it's not a ribbon that fixes everything. It's not a life changer, except life changes with little tiny things. But it's a beautiful little gesture from a lovely, innocent child, and that gets to her. It's the thing itself. What did I base it on? Nothing. I base it on itself. That if you just say, I'm that woman, and this is what's happening to her, and this is what she says, then you don't have to do any drawing on, your dead cat or your some other. But that stuff is all acting exercises. When you're playing a play, you do who you're asked to do, unless it's a bad play and you have to find substitutes. But with a good play, it's the thing itself. Did I answer your question? Okay.
I didn't know how I was going to end the play when I began it. And very often I know how a play's going to end. And I know the beginning and the end, but not the middle. This one, you know, there's a wonderful line from Streetcar, sometimes suddenly there is God. And I really felt that when the little boy just came out with the cookies. I just said, thank you, God, and I wrote the last 5 pages of the play in 5 minutes. It just seems so right. And that's called inspiration, or something in you remembers the taste of an Oreo cookie and a cold glass of milk. And it's everything. Can save your life.
I'm hungry for some Oreos now.
By the way, I don't like Oreo cookies.
And let me say, we had to rehearse that scene a lot.
Over there. Okay.
I'm a pretty smart dude, and I think the character is a pretty smart dude. I'm a writer. He's a writer. And
What do you write? What have you written?
I just love writing. I'm not a novelist or anything.
Or I didn't know if you were writing a play. The guy from Kinky, Billy Porter, wrote a play, apparently.
Yeah.
I learned a lot tonight. Are you working on a play? Will
No,
you?
I write
a one-man show?
No, I write essays and
And speeches and
He's
letters.
a wonderful writer.
letters.
He's a
Is
wonderful.
that Huffington Post
Yeah.
blog?
Oh, wow. I'll have to Google that.
and more than anything, I'm an affectionate guy. I love affection, and Will's a softie in that way too.
I don't know. I'm somebody's mother. 3 somebodies. And yeah.
3?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not so wow. 11 is wow. 3 is like regular.
Well, 3's still a lot.
When I had, oh God, I was about to tell a, I really am sick. I'm about to tell a very personal story, and I'm not going to. I think that I can be as sharp as Catherine from time to time, without being thoughtful, without being, I don't. My intention is not to be unkind, but I think I can be, because sometimes my brain works a lot faster than my sensibilities. So I can be sharp. I think that's something we have in common. But I don't, yeah.
All right. I'll take the last question, which is open to everybody, which the lovely folks at the PR agency helped me with. So I want to thank them. It was a combination of my questions and theirs. They ask, what pieces of theater have you been inspired by that influenced your work? Like, I loved hearing your story about, listening to that opera when you were young. Like, maybe hear something from the rest of you guys.
Not just because he's sitting next to me, but when I was younger than I am now, yeah, I saw Frankie and Johnny, Terrence's Frankie and Johnny, and it was the first time. I know, you can applaud, I would, yeah. And it was the first time in my life that I had seen someone who felt the way I felt up on that stage. I didn't understand. I was taken to musicals as a kid, and musicals are wonderful and transporting and all that, but I had never had an experience like that in the theater. I had never felt that give and take so symbiotically with a play before, and also the way Terrence writes is very musical, and it's a heightened way, and it has big themes and metaphors and huge ideas, and it influenced everything that I did from that point on, and it's what I aspired to do. So for me, it was Frankie and Johnny.
For me, it really was Ragtime. The score to that just blew my mind, and I would play it in my car's CD player over and over and over again, going between rehearsals and school when I was a sophomore in high school. And the fact that I got to do it on Broadway and then get to know him and become his friend, it's pretty incredible.
I've got, a top 5, I guess. We went to the theater a lot, but it's pretty eclectic. James Earl Jones in The Great White Hope, and Robert Preston in The Music Man. And I mean, there's all these different kinds of experience to have. We were pretty savvy. I was an actor's kid, so I saw a lot of theater. But there are ones that I can't forget. In Blues for Mr. Charlie, Diana Sands, in Blues for Mr. Charlie, which was not a good play, but that performance almost killed me. Yeah, there are ones that I can't forget, that are not provable. They're not, and Caldwell in the master class just put me away. Scared me so much to think of trying to do that play, and yet the play is so rich that even lesser lights get to give it a try.
And when the Kennedy Center wanted to revive it, of course, who's going to play the part that Zoe had created so brilliantly? And I woke up in the middle of the night. I said, Tyne Daly. And my husband said, what are you babbling about? And I said, Tyne Daly. I said, I saw her in Gypsy. And she's one of those actresses who just plants her feet and sings or acts. And we called her, and I don't believe in going to agents. I call them at home. And she said, I'm sitting by a...
It's harder to say no that way.
It was July 5th, and she said, I'm sitting, about to go in a swimming pool. She said, I'm terrified at the idea of playing that part. But let me reread the play. And she called the next day, said, I reread it. Scares the shit out of me? Yes. And that's how that happened.
And now you're back together again. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you. And have a good night.
Thank you.